Well, hello. This is the GLE Coupe AMG 63S, which in English roughly translates to, I have lots of money and would like a really fast homunculus. This thing has over 600 horsepower, over 600 foot-pounds of torque, and costs, as tested, $134,000. The GLE Coupe is the coupe-ified version of the regular GLE, which means this competes against things like the X6M, SQ8 or RSQ8, and the Cayenne Coupe S, GTS, whatever it's called. So this is the class of super SUVs now, the coupe-ified variants of standard SUVs for the man or woman who would like the higher ride height of a premium SUV with the disadvantages of a coupe. Now, if you like the current design ethos that Mercedes has with its interiors, meaning high tech, everything's in your face, it's supposed to wow you like a discotheque, you will probably really enjoy this cabin. It does feel like $134,000. The use of materials in this thing feel really impressive. There's great use of leather, aluminums, the brightwork all feels expensive, the carbon fiber trim pieces, the noise floor is really low. There's a great sense of solidity to this cabin as well. But if you like a more understated cabin, this will probably drive you up the wall. And with that said, cabins like this typically don't age well. So if you're leasing this vehicle in the 1 to say 3 years that you own this car, it'll probably feel fresh and current. However, if you keep this for a more extended purchase period, say 5 to 7 years, this has the potential of feeling more dated than some of the more understated cabins from Porsche, Audi, or even BMW. Now, let's talk about the tech, because that's what dominates this cabin. So, much like in the E-Class, or basically all the other Mercedes products currently sold, you have what's supposed to be one giant screen as your dash, which are really two separate screens. Your gauge cluster, like in all the other Mercedes products, is entirely digital, endlessly configurable, changes based upon drive mode, what design type you've picked, yada, yada, yada. And what I will say is, again, the tech in this car is really, really impressive. They're fast to react, the display technology is great, but like we've said in all the other Mercedes videos, it is overwhelming to use the first time you get in this cabin, and it is not that intuitive. However, I am sure if you spend a lot of time with this car, you will get used to it. And if you want to show off to your passengers, you can do that in this car as well. There are oodles of gimmicks in this infotainment. If you want to take your car to the track, as I'm sure you're going to do that in an SUV, you have your track telemetry, you have a drag racing mode, you have different mood modes for energizing, you have a personal trainer built into the head unit that tells you how to relax, how to stretch out in this cabin. You have a digital fireplace for your romance mood or whatever the hell it's called. However, everything else is a mix of a variety of different physical controls. You have these toggles on the steering wheel, much like in the AMG GT we did earlier. You still have this touchpad in the center, all this piano black surrounding it, and all these different various physical controls as well, controlling drive modes, exhaust modes, all that other fun stuff. We've made it to the rear of the GLE Coupe. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is seating comfort. The front seats in this car are incredible. They are some of the best I've ever been in an SUV like this. They don't break down over long drives. There's the correct amount of bolstering if you want to drive this thing like a lunatic, and they're endlessly configurable. And on top of that, there are some of the best seat heaters, coolers, and massagers I've ever used in any vehicle. The seating position is not my favorite. I don't like that school bus feeling of being really high up in the air and having this enormous steering wheel, but that's what you get in this SUV. But because of the high seating position, at least forward facing, you have great visibility. The rear seats, however, feel rather claustrophobic. You have enough leg room for a vehicle like this. I am 6 foot tall, and I have this in my seating position. The trunk space in this car is also rather impressive. I can't confirm this, but it feels more usable than like a BMW X6 or the SQ8. I can fit all my camera gear back there. I can fit back there. It is a really, really usable cargo area. So with that said, let's head to the shop and walk you through some of the engineering that goes into this product.
Things are heating up.
Yeah, we're underneath a real AMG, and this is the first AMG Super SUV that we've done. This is the GLE AMG 63S Coupe.
Okay, we're not going to get into the breakdown of the coupe versus the regular SUV.
Just get the regular SUV, don't get the coupe?
No, get the coupe. This is a masterpiece. But when we remove the body shape the styling, and we get down to the nuts and bolts of all the engineering to make this work, Jack was singing in my ear about, but seriously, dude, let's make some excuses about how hard it is to make something like this. And there's some truth, so why don't you tell them?
So if you think about it, right, the engineers who worked on this car, and as an engineer, I do sympathize, they had to make this for their affluent buyers who wanted everything. They wanted it to ride well. They wanted it to handle kind of like a sports car. They wanted it to be fast as hell, tow, and still have that I'm rich factor that they're expecting in a $130,000
Plus
SUV.
all the luxury car and trendy, gimmicky stuff that is driving sales on so many of these things.
Just like it's like an F-35 jet, basically, in that it has to be everything, and because it has to be everything, it's compromised in every possible way.
Yes.
It could have ridden better if it didn't have to be sporty. It could have been more efficient if it didn't have to be so damn fast. And it probably would have lasted longer or been more reliable if it didn't have to have
so much complication.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Front suspension, front end, mostly covered up, steel subframes front and rear. You have a whole bunch of aluminum, and the aluminum knuckles on these are huge. Double wishbone in the front, multi-link in the rear. This has the air ride option and the active roll stabilization, which is powered by the 48-volt mild hybrid setup, which also helps to freewheel and have the engine turn off while you're coming to a stop for the start-stop. It also has the integrated starter motor generator, which gives you a lot more of a natural restart feeling, more like it is a hybrid. Yeah. So you don't have that like lugging or shaking sensation that you get with a lot of start-stop systems. So as you're getting dripped on, because this thing was in the snow today, tell me about some other things.
So we have air ride, like you mentioned earlier, and what the air ride system does in this vehicle is it varies the ride height based upon if you're in the off-road mode. You'll get a total of 2 extra inches of clearance, which raises this vehicle up to 10 inches. You're getting dripped on as well, Mark.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just thinking about that 10 extra inches. And I'm already getting all damp over here from the little dribbles.
And then when you're in normal mode, or comfort mode is the regular ride height, when you exceed about 75 miles an hour, for aero reasons, it lowers by 0.4 of an inch. However, in Sport, Sport Plus, and Track mode suspension...
You mean race?
Sorry, race mode suspension, it lowers by 0.4 of an inch. When talking about brakes, you have massive 6-piston front calipers and optional, this car doesn't have them, but you can also get optional carbon ceramics. However, the rear calipers are rather wimpy.
Straight out of my Geo Metro convertible. It's like, what do we got? Oh, just throw that at it.
1-piston rear calipers that are about this big.
It's not that they're not effective. Obviously, all the braking force is going in the front, but when you look at it proportionately to the front, it's like hilarious. So the other stuff to talk about, Jack, let's cover this quickly. Gearbox, torque converted.
It is the 9-speed TCT. It is not a DSG, and as we talked about in the drive, this is the best variant of Mercedes gearbox we've built.
We'll talk about that on the drive. We're not going to bore you with that. It's got a bunch of cooling underneath. You can see this here, oil cooling. You have plenty of panels and kick-ups to flow air into the center differential, and you told me that this thing has
a clutch pack style center differential. So this car is normally rear driven, as most of this this more premium sporty SUV segment is. However, depending on your drive mode, stability control setting, it will send power to the front. This vehicle in Sport and Race and Sport Plus prioritizes a rear driving experience. So if you turn all the modes off, all the safety settings, you go in full off, this does feel more rear biased. It will rotate under braking and rotate under throttle.
It's amazing, really, how far technology has come to make something like this completely dual purpose. You're just paying a lot of money for it. But let's get under the hood and talk about the engine, Jack.
All right, Mark.
Under the hood of another real AMG here, Jack, although I'm sure people are going to argue that, we got an engine handcrafted by Sebastian Duties.
Yeah, so this is the M177, Mark. This is a similar engine that's found in basically every other AMG. This is a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 with a hot V setup. You want to hit me with the specs?
Yeah, we got the 603 horsepowers. We got 630 torques.
Oh, yeah.
We have a carbon fiber engine cover that's optional, and this small piece here is doing a lot. It's going to be about $1,500 to $2,000 just for that.
And tell me about this, Mark.
You have a carbon reinforced plastic radiator support bracket. It helps to increase rigidity while reducing weight on the front end. And what else does it do?
It also acts as the cowl induction system, or the induction system for these two twin air boxes you have. And this car produces almost 20 pounds of boost to get you those horsepowers, Mark. And all of that, again, goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission through a clutch pack style limited slip diff in the back. And this allows you to tow about 7,200 pounds.
That's correct. It also has a mild hybrid setup to it. They've gotten way more complicated. It's essentially 3 different types of, you got battery packs, you got an engine, you got a little motor in there. I mean,
and you have cylinder deactivation on top of that.
Yep, cylinder deactivation. So you just might think, why? And this is the only way this stuff exists.
I will say it does work really, really well.
It does.
You don't notice the ISG almost ever. You don't really notice cylinder deactivation. And it does feel like it's making all 603 horsepower, whatever, 627 foot-pounds of torque all the time. And even with winter tires, it puts all of that power down.
How does it sound?
Horrible, I'm going to be honest. Outside of the car, it sounds like every other AMG V8. It's got a nice, throaty twin-turbo noise. However, on the inside, it sounds like a little man, a German man with a Casio keyboard playing some tunes.
I just wish you could just one touch off.
It's one of the worst sounding.
Hey, Mercedes, turn off all the fake engine electronic bullshit through the speakers. Let's take this for a drive, Jack, and see how it operates.
All right. Oh boy, Mark. We're in the homunculus mobile. This is the AMG GLE 63 Coupe S.
There better be a good reason why this exists, and it's 130,000, Jack.
Well, you're about to find out.
I can make a few excuses for a lot of things, but the way this pile looks and a whole bunch of other things.
And the horrifying price.
This thing is really fast.
I mean, on a back road, legitimately, this is as fast as pretty much any sports car we've taken back here. Because it puts all of its torque down and all of its horsepower.
Yeah, it does. It's got no issues with traction, and now we're on
snow tires.
Yeah. So that's what's funny about this. And I guess if you're gonna pay this kind of money, this is a huge part of what you're buying this for. You want the prestige factor of this kind of faux racy interior, the carnival lights, but it really is remarkably fast. The transmission's good. I mean, it's crazy.
But you should expect that at this price.
I don't know. I guess this is what we've come to expect on even an SUV. And we joke around about this, like, if you're a car person, this is almost makes you want to throw up in your mouth. Because why isn't this being done and all this technology and advancement being put in a sports car that can be far more enjoyable as a driver's machine? But the reality is that doesn't sell.
No, this is for someone who wants the status and doesn't want the inconvenience of owning more than one car.
Yeah.
You are so rich, you've run out of things to buy. You don't want to buy the regular GLE and get a dedicated sports car. You want one thing.
Yeah, you want this hearted coupe SUV car thing in a giant looking blob that's as fast as a sports car. And that's exactly what it does. And I can't even argue its abilities because it is so good at what it does.
No, it is extremely technically proficient, much like the Cayenne Coupe S, the Cayenne GTS, the X6M. You know, in this class of over $100,000 SUVs, they're all really good at doing, basically everything.
It's almost, I don't want to like it because it makes me so upset that this is so proficient and good. But let's kind of break down the main things. We talked about the engine. Engine performance is stellar. And you mentioned it's the same thing out of the AMG GT, or more or less, right?
Yeah, it's the same twin-turbo V8 that you're used to. Makes more torque than it does horsepower. And much like the Trackhawk, it's unbelievably fast, about 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Then you hit an arrow and weight wall. I mean, it's still really
it's
fast.
pulling, but
Yeah.
it's not pulling as much over 100. But for the people that are buying this, at least in North America, you're never going to be over 85, 90 miles an hour anyway. So in that usable range, it's really impressive sports car levels of performance. Transmission performance, this is the first Mercedes that I've been in where it doesn't feel like the transmission's broken.
Yeah, unlike the AMG GTC we drove,
Yeah.
the gearbox has not messed up once.
And to be fair, this has got 1,200 miles, so we've gotten it before it's been completely abused to death. The steering in it is still a little bit of feedback, which I was surprised even on snow tires. It's weighted properly. It's not overly quick. It's really comfortable for what this is trying to be.
And it's natural feeling.
It is natural. Everything about the inputs of this car, including the brakes, is natural. There's nothing that stands out as like, why is it like that? That's annoying. This is going to tire you out owning it long term.
The suspension tuning's great too.
Yes. And this is really bad pavement that we're on right now. It's really choppy. And in the softest mode, it's like a cloud while you have air ride. And even you're in what race right now?
So I'm in sport for the dampers, but I'm in individual, Mark.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what drive mode you're
Here,
in.
I'll put it in race for you.
Okay, and you're never going to drive with race on the street. And it firms it up just to the point where you could still use it every day and not notice that you're getting knocked in the head with a rock every time you hit a bump. And I don't know, I really like the way this thing drives, and I think you made the point, why not just get the regular SUV and not the coupe? And it would kind of throw away some of those, like...
My only complaints with this thing, really, other than, this is more money than you and I can afford.
Yeah, right. No, it's way too much money.
And I can't argue the value in this, right? I think, you're still better off buying a regular SUV and a more dedicated sports car, but this does everything well. All of its problems have to do with the coupe form factor, which you and I both agree is stupid.
Yeah, it's a very trendy thing right now, but I think that's a great time to get into the final thoughts, and I'm going to break down some of the pros and the cons of what this is and what it isn't.
All right.
Final thoughts on the Mercedes AMG GLE 63S Coupe. Yes, it took me about 6 times to record all that, but I'll tell you one thing. This car, or SUV, or whatever the hell you want to call it, as a new product, it's just mind-numbing how great it is to drive. I mean, there's so much technology packed in here that long-term, this is not something that's going to be particularly easy to afford to own. And that's not why you're buying it. If you want that coupe SUV, this is amazing. And I think the biggest complaint I have is just its looks. Its looks are so confusing. It is so awkward. But once you get over that and get behind the wheel, a lot of it, all the engineering that they put into it just makes more sense. And if you're using this all year around as a lease, and you're the type of person that has to have the look of this, you're gonna love it. But saying that, I would just rather get the regular GLE. The regular SUV, it looks more traditional. So aside from that, this, by surprise, had one of the best audio systems we tested in 2020, or 2021 now. The Burmester 3D audio setup sounds amazing to the ear. And unlike the sound system, the Bang & Olufsen 3D audio that we just did in the Audi, the upper end one, it has kind of the opposite tuning, where this is a little bit more warm. It still sounds very natural. The curves don't particularly show how great it is to listen to. Compressed audio is good over Bluetooth, and your wired connection is phenomenal. So I would say between the Bowers and Wilkins and some of the Volvos and BMWs and this, top choice. If you love music, you've got to opt for this system. But again, this is one of these weird, hyper trendy products that you may like, and if you have enough money to lease this thing, go for it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.